going to continue on looking at the events that led to the American Revolution. So we already know that there's tension in Massachusetts. After the First Continental Congress, tensions were high. Remember, colonial militias were raised in the event of a fight. The two sides were peaceful in the winter of 1774 to 1775. So you have British soldiers already present in the colonies, and then you have the colonies raising their own colonial militia, which is military, their own military. In April of 1775, British General Thomas Gage attempted to seize gunpowder in the town of Concord because he knew they were building up their weapons too. So this British general was like, I'm going to try to get the gunpowder from them. He also ordered his troops to arrest Sam Adams and John Hancock in Lexington because they were part of the Sons of Liberty, you know, fighting for independence. Well, eventually they will be fighting for independence. Patriots learned of the plan, and Paul Revere wrote famously to warn the men and the people of Concord. And that's where your famous home comes. The British are coming, the British are coming. Members of the militia and British redcoats clashed at Lexington on the dawn on April 19, 1775. It has been known as the shot heard round the world because this is the beginning of the American Revolution. Its chaos caused war to basically be broken out. The regulars marched on to Concord. As they looked for the military supplies, the militiamen successfully fight off a smaller group guarding a nearby bridge. So they are successful in basically stopping the British from taking the gunpowder. And this is going to be called the Battle of Lexington and Concord. So remember, chaos broke out, war has finally begun. The Second Continental Congress, so now they're going to have another meeting. They meet in May 1775. Actions: create an organized army to defend the colonies. They are also going to name George Washington as the leader of the army. So now they're going to formally create an army. George Washington was the leader of the Continental Army. He gained experience during the French and Indian War. The British won the Battle of Bunker Hill in June of 1775, but lost many men. The Americans dug in for a siege in the winter of 75 to 76. Washington is going to position his cannons on Dorchester Heights. The British will eventually leave the city because he has cannons positioned on it. So the question is should we try for independence or should we fight for peace? Congress sent the Olive Branch petition to Britain in July 1775. King George rejected it because keep in mind, the colonists really don't want to break away from England. They just want England to stop violating their rights and taxing them heavily. So they were hoping if they send this olive branch to the king that, you know, war wouldn't take place, that it would stop. But there are others that thought that a war should take place. And Thomas Paine, he's going to write Common Sense. It's a pamphlet, and that's P-A-M-P-H-L-E-T, published in 1776, arguing for American independence. Writing in plain language, the pamphlet was hugely popular. And he basically saying it didn't make any sense for this small country on one side of the world to rule over 13 colonies on the other side of the Atlantic Ocean. He was like, just break away. So you're going to have two groups form. You're going to have the patriots that want to break away from England and become their own colonies, their own states, and you're going to have the loyalists that are still loyal to England. The patriots believed there was no alternative than independence. Britain had taken away colonists' liberty. Their whole thing was give me liberty or give me death, and that's from Patrick Henry. The loyalists, however, remained loyal to Great Britain and King George III. They were also known as Tories. The colonies benefited from Great Britain and would be weaker without her. That's what they're thinking, because keep in mind, Great Britain is a powerful empire during this time. The colonies should obey British laws. That's what the Loyalists or Tories felt. However, the Patriots are going to start drafting this very important document called the Declaration of Independence. Congress authorized a committee to draft a document declaring the independence of the colonies, and it was actually approved July 4, 1776. That's why we celebrate July 4th. That's when the Declaration of Independence was published. 5 men were on this committee, and that was John Adams, Benjamin Franklin, and Thomas Jefferson were on the committee. They chose Jefferson to draft the document. Jefferson at this time was only 33 years old. He was very young. Jefferson stated that people have natural rights, and he got this from the Enlightenment ideals that y'all should have studied last year. And he said those natural rights were inalienable because King George violated those rights. Great Britain had no right to govern the colonies. But excuse me. But how could the Americans win? The colonists faced the strongest empire in the world. The 13 colonies. The army was undersupplied, underfed, and untrained. They were weak. They had a weak government. The economics, a weak government, a weak economic system, no international allies. Initially, in the beginning, nobody allied themselves with the 13 colonies. Now, the positive, eventually they were aided by the French, Spanish, and Dutch. Fighting a war on their home turf with a very large population is what helped them out a lot because they knew the land. Colonies continue. So they were also fighting for independence. This gave Americans the ability to push through difficult times. And they also had George Washington that had military experience. Now for the British, they were well trained. They were disciplined army, and they had the strongest navy in the world. But their negatives were they were fighting very far from home, trying to control a large area of land. They had a failure of leadership to unite and organize for the war, and Britain had enemies, a lot of enemies. So that's why the European countries are going to join in and help. So this is the beginning of the American Revolution. The next video is going to address the different, or look at the different battles of the American Revolution. Thank you, and have a good day.